Hi everyone. So I was supposed to put a video out on Friday and I totally got swamped with having a sale here at the store. Just a revisioning, I kind of want to say. Um, I live in a small community where a lot of people, I don't know how to really put this. A lot of people go to the pet store that they've always gone to because it's always been here. Not because they sell the best products, not because it's the best price, not because they're any more knowledgeable than the next pet store, but because he's been here forever. And then you get other people who go to a pet store, something with a big name, because they believe that they have the training and the knowledge that they're looking for, when in actual fact, a lot of the time, that knowledge is not there. So I've decided to kind of switch my focus from kind of carrying a little bit of everything to carrying high quality dog foods and cat foods. I'm also the only supplier of raw food in quite the radius, actually. I don't believe any other pet store in the area carries raw food, and although there are a few local butchers that do have dog food blends, they are not AFCO certified. Obviously, it's just really ground meat, and then you add whatever you want after that. Um, so yeah, anyway, I'm having this huge sale, and it's been crazy, and it kind of, I've had a lot more people coming in asking me about things, which was kind of the point of having this sale, was to get rid of the stuff that's been here forever, that is kind of generic and you can get everywhere, and focusing on the more specialty items. And I just had a gentleman leave asking about a cage muzzle. He says to me that his puppy, who's only 8 months old, chews everything, and they leave a cage muzzle on the dog. Apparently he even sleeps with the cage muzzle on, which I think is a bit extreme, because he will chew everything, and I guess he got the last one off and chewed that. So he was looking for a new one. Now, I do try to educate as many people as I can about when they get puppies and what to expect. And one of the biggest things I tell people is that puppies are chewing machines, especially certain breeds. Labs are notorious chewers, as are a lot of your higher end, like higher energy working breeds. So your German Shepherds, your Rottweilers, your Dobermans, any like there are a lot of high energy breeds in there that don't. I've known a few, of course. My poster's over there, so if you see me glancing in that direction, um, most boxers I know will chew like crazy. Most Samoyeds, though, tend to be a little bit more, you know, bring me out and let's run and play. So if you're getting a puppy, or if you have a dog that chews on things and you don't know where to go, that's kind of what this video is for. So I think the biggest thing that people kind of skip over, and they just assume it's one reason or another. Um, my biggest thing that I tell people is you need to figure out why your dog is chewing on things. There could be a few reasons. Um, Now, obviously, the first one people go to, especially if they have puppies, is that their puppy is teething. And that's true. Your puppy will chew on things if he's teething, because he's that instinct is there. The new teeth are growing in. It's kind of like a baby. You know, babies like to chew and suck on things. Kind of the same idea. So if you have a puppy, that could very well be the case. There are also a couple other reasons, though, why your dog might be chewing excessively. And we're not talking just, a couple. Okay, sit on the if you're gonna sit there. Silly girl, move out of the way. She just wants to steal my sweater. The box is gone. There, babe. So, if your dog is teething, it's gonna chew. But there are other reasons. If your dog is really anxious, a lot of people will say that their dogs suck on their blankets. And some dogs will chew out of a nervous habit. Some dogs will chew on themselves, they'll chew on their nails, they'll chew on their fur, they'll chew on their legs. Some will chew on their toys, some will chew on their chair legs or couches or cushions, or who the heck knows. I've seen dogs rip doors down if they get really anxious. Another reason is boredom. If your dog is bored, it may decide that, hey, this is fun-ish, let's do this. So the first thing you need to that you need to find out is, why is my dog chewing on things? Once you've figured that out, things become a little easier to decide what direction to go in from there. So one of the biggest things that people say to me when they come in is, my dog doesn't chew on toys or doesn't like to play with toys. Especially when people say this about puppies, a red light kind of goes off, because that's not really a normal thing for puppies. Even dogs who come from working lines, so like your bigger Mastiffs, new St. Bernards, as a puppy, they should be exploring things with their mouth. And if they're not, it's probably because the toy that you've picked out is not what they're looking for. Now, that's not to say that some puppies don't like to chew on things, because that's totally a valid answer. If your dog doesn't touch anything, and is content to sit around or sit with you on the couch or, eat a bone, okay, fine. But if your dog is, let's say you have, I don't know, take something that's not known for chewing in general. Let's say you have an Irish Wolfhound, and, he's chewing on your chair legs, and he's chewing on the couch, and he's, eating the drywall out of the wall, like he's going to everything he can. And you go to the store and buy him, let's say a Kong. Kongs are very popular, even for older dogs. So you buy him a Kong and the dog won't touch it. Well, there could be other reasons. It could be that the toy that you picked out is not what your dog's looking for. So with puppies, I always recommend that you buy toys that are soft, plushy, and obviously size appropriate. So you wouldn't buy like a little toy that's this big for a St. Bernard. You wouldn't buy a huge rope toy for a Pomeranian puppy. You gotta make sure that they're size appropriate. So, bring that with you when you go to the store, thinking, okay, I've got to find something that's going to be easy on their teeth, easy on their jaws. You got to remember, these things they're babies. They can't chew down on these toys. Now, again, there are exceptions to this rule. I've seen Rottweiler puppies that are just monsters when it comes to chewing. But it's always my recommendation that you start with something soft. A prime example, when the past owner ran this store, he had a German Shepherd puppy, and he wouldn't touch any of his toys. They just kind of sat on the bottom of the cage, and the puppy would just kind of look at them like, okay, whatever. And it wasn't until he got a hold of this little lamb toy. It was very soft, it was very plush, and he would do anything for this toy. And it was so funny, because this gentleman was training the dog to be like a protection dog, which is a whole other can of worms I'm not even going to go near. And it was so funny, because you'd see this dog that he was supposedly training to be this big, mean, nasty dog, and he had this little lamb toy in his mouth. It was hilarious. So you gotta remember, from the dog's point of view, that maybe the toy that you've picked is too hard for their teeth. They might not be looking for that kind of chewing. Now, of course, people are going to say, well, if the dog's chewing on the wall, then, obviously it's not looking for something soft. It's not just the texture that you've got to keep in mind if your dog is chewing destructively. Most of these things have, like varnish, has a flavor. It has a taste. It's got a smell. There could be something about that particular thing that is encouraging them to chew on it. So, aside from providing your dog with something appropriate to chew on, you might want to just try something to deter the dog from chewing on what it's not supposed to. I recommend bitter apple is a good one, and trust me, it tastes disgusting. Try it on something that, before you kind of put all your heart and soul into spraying it on everything, make sure that your dog sees that as a deterrent. I know a couple dogs that actually like the taste of bitter apple. Another one out there is called bitter yuck. There's a couple of yucky goop. There's a whole bunch. Um, so try spraying that on things that you don't want your dog to chew on, so that those toys now become something that's more desirable for them to chew on. So let's say you have an older dog and he's chewing on things that he's not supposed to. Likely it's because of boredom and not because of teething. So you might want to provide your older dog with a toy that you can put food in, especially if your dog is food motivated. You might want to try something that is squeaky or has like a game toy where you can put food in and it's interactive, something to keep them occupied with this toy. Because if they're bored, then they are definitely going to want to do something during the day. I hear it a lot. People say, oh, I go to work all day and I don't want to leave my dog in a kennel, so I let him run around the house, and he's chewing on this or he's getting into that. That's because there's nothing else to do. Now, there's a whole other debate that I have with people a lot of the times about kennels, and, you know, if your dog is a problem chewer, if there's a problem with that particular behavior, buying a kennel is definitely something I recommend, because until you can get this problem under control, allowing your dog to continue to chew on the things you don't want him to chew on is just reinforcing the behavior. You want to make sure that your dog only has access to the things that you want them to be able to chew, especially if you have a puppy, because if you let them run around the house and you know that they're a problem chewer, and they get a hold of something they're not supposed to chew on, and you're gone for the next 5 or 6 hours, what's there to say, no, don't chew on this, right? So the last reason I have that I see most commonly that dogs chew is out of anxiety. Now, this doesn't seem to be as prevalent as the other two. Most dogs who they don't chew, they're destructive. They're plain old destructive. They will try to take the door trim off. They will try to get through the door. There are cases of actual just the chewing, but usually it's more a destructive behavior and not a chewing behavior, if that, if I'm making this sound correct. So if your dog is anxious, if that's the problem, that your dog gets anxious when you leave and goes kind of into a meltdown, then there's two things I recommend. The first is to make sure that your dog is getting an appropriate amount of exercise. Because if your dog, picture your dog as a bottle of pop. If you have an anxious dog, that's what I want you to picture your dog as. So you got this bottle of pop, and it's been in the house all day, or in the kennel, and you get up to go to work, and the dog hasn't gone out for a walk. So all day, that bottle is shaking, 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 and eventually it'll explode, because the tension inside that bottle of fizz just blows the top off. And some dogs, this happens after you leave. Other dogs, this shaking of the bottle, this agitation, starts before you even leave. So you need to be able to stop that pressure from happening before the top blows off of it. So bringing your dog out for a walk is always my first recommendation. Now, this is something that people kind of take out of context sometimes, and I really want to put it back into context, what I mean by take the dog out for a walk. If you have, let's say, looking at my poster again, let's say you have a Pomeranian. That's something smaller, maybe, it doesn't have to be a small dog. Let's say you have, I'm trying to think of a dog that's not as high energy, that's, might become stressed. Let's say Bloodhound. I had a Bloodhound cross I fostered. His name was Gunther. He was a Bloodhound lab, and he had anxiety issues. So, let's say you have a Bloodhound cross, and you leave for work, and the dog starts pacing around the house, or, well, obviously you would know if the dog's pacing around the house, but he gets into the garbage, he's ripping the door off. Let's say you put the dog in a kennel, he's moving the crate across the floor, or he's trying to eat his way out of the kennel. You take the dog out for a walk. Now, in the case of Gunther, a good solid 20-minute walk was enough to take the edge off that he could stay in his kennel for a couple hours until my roommate or I could run home from school and take him out for another couple minutes, or when my neighbors would come upstairs and let him out um, for his walk. He was epileptic, which was not the stress and anxiety um, was like it was there before he started developing seizures. So, we would take him out, and that 10, 15, 20-minute walk was enough to take the edge off, and he would be fine in his kennel. Now, let's say you have a husky. Huskies are very, very common, suffer from anxiety, or another, let's say, a Dalmatian. If you take your dog, that's a high-energy dog like a husky or a Dalmatian, out for just a walk, chances are you're not going to see a difference, because that's not enough to take that pressure out of this bottle of pop that's been going to sit there shaking all day. So if you've got a dog that's high energy, you might have to take this dog out for a run, or a hike, or a walk with a backpack on with some weight in it. Or if you have a treadmill, treadmills are great for dogs who have anxiety because it tires them out. If you put a dog who's anxious in a kennel, that's only going to breed more anxiousness. You've got to find a way to take the edge off of this, and taking the dog out for a simple walk is not going to do it. If you find that your dog is, out for a walk, and you see that this is becoming a better situation, then, add more stimulus to this. Take the dog out for a run, feed him when you get home, put the dog in a kennel. Like I said, when you've got a problem chewer, a kennel is definitely the way to go. So, you take the dog out, you go for a good half-hour run, the dog gets home, he's tired. You put him in his kennel with his meal, with a really tasty bone that he only gets when he's in his kennel, and you will see a difference. Now, any person who trains dogs will tell you that once a dog stops eating, you have crossed over that threshold of okay, and you don't want to do that. If your dog is so scared of being in a kennel that it won't eat while it's in a kennel, then there are some other issues that you might want to address before you go to this step. The dog might have anxiety in itself about the kennel. It might not like to be in confined spaces. It might not understand what's going on and what's expected of them when they go into a kennel. So these are things you're going to want to investigate as you go along the way, and, work on these things so that you can get somewhere with the problem chewing. Because if your dog is, especially if you have an anxious dog, if you put an anxious dog into a situation that makes them more anxious, then things aren't going to get better. And this is where, plenty of exercise and a good solid foundation of training is going to go a long way. And I know a lot of people will say, I don't like to bribe my dog into a kennel. I am not below bribery. If your dog loves hot dogs, and you put a hot dog in that kennel and they eat it, all the better. That's what you want. So there are plenty of videos out there on YouTube about how to train your dog to accept a kennel. And, once you get that down, you can move on to some of the other things that I've suggested about solving this problem chewing, and how you can help to facilitate this. So I hope you learned something. I know this video is really long. I'm trying my best not to talk in circles. If you have any questions, put them below. I'll try to find some other videos on YouTube about kennel training your dog so that you can look at them if that's an issue that your dog has coupled with the problem chewing. And I hope you learned something.